Greetings, one and all. I am Baba the Storyteller, and welcome to Interesting Profiles in History, where I like to cover personalities overlooked in popular discourses on history. Let's start. Aesop, one of the most intriguing personalities in history, lived over 2,500 years ago and is a foundational figure in Western intellectual traditions. What we know of his life comes to us through the writings of a 14th century Byzantine monk, Maximus Planutus. Aesop was a slave and a native of Phrygia, an area of modern-day Turkey. He described Aesop as flat-nosed with thick lips and pendulous and black skin, from which he got his name. Now, the word Aesop is a Greek corruption of the word Ethiop, which was a popular ethnic term used back then to say someone was black. Much of Aesop's life has been passed down to us through stories. And probably the most famous story is about when he locked horns with one of the wealthiest men of the era, the king of Lydia, Croesus. Aesop was living in Samos at the time, and King Croesus attempted to strong-arm the people into paying him for protection. Historians like to call this tribute, but today we tend to call it what it is, extortion. So Aesop was popular among the people of Samos. They sought him out for his wise counsel. And he explained to them, there are two ways before you. The way of liberty, which is narrow and rugged at the entrance, but plainer and smoother the further that you travel. The second is the way of servitude. That seems easy at first, but is afterwards full of intolerable difficulties. You must decide. The Samians weren't fools. They understood that not fighting meant they were sacrificing their freedom. They chose to go to war. Word got back to King Croesus that one man had influenced an entire nation of people to go to war against him. And so he wanted to know who this influencer was. Under the guise of diplomacy, Croesus promised the Samians peace if they sent Aesop to him. The thought that they wouldn't have to go to war against a mightier, more well-equipped enemy seduced the citizens of Samos. They appealed to Aesop to go meet with the king. Ever ready with a teaching tale, Aesop told them of a war that had been fought between wolves and sheep. The sheep formed an alliance with the dogs and began beating the wolves into submission. The wolves agreed to make peace on condition that the dogs be sent to them. The sheep agreed, and as for the rest of the story, I'm sure you don't need to hear it. After realizing the truth of the story, the Samians pled with Aesop not to go. Well, Aesop would not have been Aesop if he hadn't decided on his own accord to go. During that first moment King Croesus met Aesop, he insulted him by asking, "Is this ill-favored slave one to hinder me, the king of Lydia, from being the master of Samos?" Adept in the ways and traditions of the Lydian people, Aesop bowed low, as was their custom, and spoke softly, telling Croesus that he had come of his own free will. He then took the opportunity to segue into a fable about a boy hunting for locusts who instead captured a grasshopper. The grasshopper, fearing she was about to die, begged for her life, telling the child that she had never mistreated nor caused anyone harm. "All I do is offer the world my song." She then asked the boy if killing her would make him a better person. The boy's heart was touched, and he set the grasshopper free. Aesop focused his attention on King Croesus, saying, "Your Majesty has now that innocent creature before you. There is nothing I can pretend to but my voice, which I have ever employed so far as I could for the service of mankind." I know, right? Aesop was smooth, wasn't he? So, impressed by his intellect and humility, Croesus allowed Aesop to make one request of him that he would grant without question. I want you to imagine this. You are standing before the richest person on earth. They tell you that you may ask anything of them that you want, and they will grant your wish. What do you ask for? Think about that for a second. Now, what do you think Aesop asked for? Incredibly, out of all the things he could have requested, he asked King Croesus to leave the nation of Samos in peace. This was an historical checkmate, a brilliant play of diplomacy that Well, it added to Aesop's legend. Because of his immense wisdom, Croesus wanted to keep Aesop close, make him a member of his court. He trusted Aesop so much, he permitted him to continue enjoying his passion for travel. And when he did travel, the king financed his trips, providing him with letters of introduction to the most powerful monarchs of that time. When not traveling, he could be found in Lydia crafting and writing his fables. Aesop's unparalleled intellect and sharp tongue were both a blessing and a curse. When the mouth refuses to listen to the mind, trouble soon follows. It was his gift of gab that eventually led to his death. He visited Delphi. The Greeks considered Delphi to be the center of the earth. Why was it so famous? Well, for one, it was said to be surrounded by some of the most beautiful landscapes to have ever existed. Now, there's a debate to be had around that, but two, and I think this is the main reason for its fame. There was this priestess in the temple of Apollo named Pythia, who was famously known as the Oracle of Delphi. She was sought out by great leaders of the world because of her connection to the spiritual realm and also for the accuracy of her prophecies. So, Aesop is in Delphi, and in one of those unguarded moments, where you're feeling relaxed and enjoying the company of what seem to be really cool people, he answered a question about his impression of the city. In typical Aesop fashion, he responded to the inquiry with an allegory. Some person standing at the seaside, he started, saw an object on the ocean coming toward them a great way off, which had all the appearance of being something of importance. But when it came close enough to be discernible, they found it to be a great mass of weeds and rubbish. Such, I find, to be the curiosity that brought me to Delphi. Yes, you heard that right. Aesop outright called one of the most famous cities in the world trash. Let me put this in contemporary context for you. I have spent a great deal of my life traveling throughout the world. In every country, city, town I have visited, people always ask, what do you think of our home, neighborhood, city, or country? I can honestly say I have never been motivated to call someone's place of birth and residence trash. I'm not sure what Aesop was thinking. But because of his fame, word spread like a wildfire. He had insulted the citizens of Delphi in the worst possible way. News may not paddle a canoe, but it makes it across the river just the same. Aesop was captured by a mob of Delphians and thrown over a cliff. An inglorious end to such a notable figure in world history. If you enjoy learning about historical personalities, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll follow up with more incredibly interesting profiles. You can also visit my website, babathestoryteller.com, and sign up for my email list to get notified about all the other happenings with yours truly. Oh, almost forgot. If you sign up for the email list, you'll get a few free downloads of wisdom tales that I professionally recorded, mixed, and mastered for you. So until our paths cross again, as I'm fond of saying, doni doni, kononi benyagada, or little by little, the small bird manages to build its nest.